Namaste. We are going in a series of gems from Savitri, one canto after another. So today we read a very interesting portion from book 1, canto 3. So normally we think that progress is on a straight path, and people often ask how to know the divine will, for example, how to make choices. Now we must understand divine doesn't act according to a mental format. So mental format is this versus that. This is how the mind operates. Always it is either or. Mind will always operate like that. And to an extent it has its purpose and meaning. When we are struggling as mental beings, we have to, work it out like that. But if you look at nature, behind which there is the divine, before it has been polluted by human mind. Have you noticed that suddenly on the earth you have spurt of dinosaurs, creatures? What purpose did they serve except eventually calling an asteroid to destroy them, and with it an entire earth? What is the purpose in giving boons to asuras? They are not done by human beings, no? They are done by the divine himself. So we have a mental idea of things where we think it is like this or like that. But in truth, it is very fascinating when we, take the sum and substance of the mother's writings. Yes, you must know the divine will and act according to that. Why? Because then your journey becomes very smooth and safe. It's the short, swift, sunlit path. What if you cannot know? Because there are a number of times you cannot know. It's the conditions are such. You have to get over all preferences, equanimity, desires, everything. You have to live in the calm equality, preferably keeping the ego aside. None of these conditions are simple. Quieten the mental noise, quieten the vital noise. So what happens when, one cannot do all this? So there are ways: open a book, pray to mother. Then there is a third way: act according to your highest and offer it to the divine. And so that he overrides his knowledge overrides your nescience. But there is a final word that the mother says. She says, yes, human beings have at any given point different options. So we have a linear way of thinking that it's my will which is going to decide my future destiny. But there is something else. There is something which is already predetermined. And that is what each of us is going to be. So the end is determined. So whichever way you take, there will be a pressure to go in that direction. It's something very unique that Sri Aurobindo brings. Because it's about the future. So what we can do is we can play at cross purposes with the will, or we can align with the will. So what happens when we align with the will? We flow smoothly, like swimming with the current. And it's wonderful. And everything is beautiful. That's the straight sunlit path. What if somebody is not able to align with the will? See, Arjuna doesn't ask in that many words, but his question is valid. When he says that, what you are teaching is very good but difficult. What if one cannot do it? This is what ultimately Arjuna's question is. He said it's not lost. Even a little bit of this effort is never lost. It goes on to add. But the mother says something very interesting, that if you play at cross purposes, you go through a lot of complexity, but eventually you will still reach there. But there is a recompense that you grow in completer realization. So on one side there is the quick realization, which is limited. On the other side there is a completer realization which goes through difficulties. So in yoga, something similar happens. Normally we think that it should be only a uphill. But there is a uphill and there is a downhill. The Vedic rishis knew it. And they speak about going up and they going down. And the classical images of mountains. So when you climb from one peak of the mountain to another, how do you climb? Not everywhere you have a ropeway. You come down, and it described in one of the prayers of the mothers. You come down and then you climb, because it's a different effort altogether. It's not that you can take a leap from here to there. Maybe one odd peak one can, but generally this is the process. So this going up and going down is part of the same process, and the Vedic rishis called it the day and the night, suckling the divine child. So both have their reason, and the purpose is very simple. We'll read that passage from Savitri, that what is the day? Parts that are bright, luminous, upward in all of us. First, these parts are touched in yoga. So life is wonderful, everything is wonderful. But we are not only that. There is a darkness which is there in all terrestrial things. Let's not go into its why it is there. That's a different passage altogether. But it is there. What about these fields? Now, in a traditional yoga, you sit upon it. And preferably, you don't enter it by withdrawing from the world, where the moment you enter into the world, you will enter into it. So, you sit over it, the yogi on the whirlpool, and gradually withdraw. But in this yoga, you, not that one should ever want to enter, but you will go through these states. But in the process, the change which takes place is complete. Because nothing can be left untouched by the light. So, this is the passage which I wish to read. It's a very powerful passage, and it gives hope to all. Page 34, because very often we have this idea of spiritual life that, oh, now every day they must be meditating for how many hours? No, sometimes people ask, oh, you are in Sri Aurobindo ashram. First question, how many hours you meditate? So if you tell them that no, it's very unnerving. Then what do? We do work. Work, so everybody does work. No, we do it with a little change of inner attitude. So work means what? That 6-hour work? No. Everything is work. Meaning thereby, now that's very difficult. It's a whole life. Whole life is a field of work and an opportunity. It's not just the 6 hours. 6 hours is required for a collective smooth functioning. But the yoga doesn't begin and cease after 6 hours. Yoga is a constant process. So one cannot constantly keep that burning aspiration. It's not easy. Why? Because there is only a part in which the fire is lit. All other parts are not ready to be lit up. Sri Ramakrishna would say the dry log of wood and the wet log of wood. If the wet log of wood suddenly catches fire, it will throw up a lot of smoke. First of all, it won't catch fire easily. So here is a description. Only a while at first these heavenlier states, states of beauty. Many people get very frustrated, or they become very restless, impatient. Why nothing is happening? I came for yoga and I have to go through all this. This is part of the same journey. It is part of one process. The restless neither members tire of peace. A nostalgia of old little works and joys, a need to call back small familiar selves, to tread the accustomed and inferior way, the need to rest in a natural pose of fall, as a child who learns to walk can walk not long, replace the titan will forever to climb, on the heart's altar dim the sacred fire. So you will see this tendency. People come to ashram, they come to visit, and they come to bathe and breathe that joy. And then after darshan day, all nice clothes and all, you come back after darshan. Then you meet your old familiar selves coming from here, there. Hey, how are you? Chalo, let's go and have some food in Anand Bhavan. So how is everything? You just spill it out. Because these parts are not ready. They're not prepared. So why this happens, Sri Aurobindo is describing to us. An old pull of subconscious cords renews. It draws the unwilling spirit from the height. Something in us doesn't want to come back. It even feels, one can see a division, but the other parts, or a dull gravitation drags us down to the blind, driven inertia of our base. Because the base is matter. The whole problem of life is matter. Imperfection is because of matter. What is matter? Matter is the first emergence out of the inconscient. But because it is the first emergence, inconscient and its forces have kneaded it thoroughly. So they say it's my baby. So matter is the last fortress of these forces, which means the physical body. That's why conquest over physical body and conquest over physical death is the last conquest, not the first one. It is when all the inconscient forces have been driven away. So now, when we read this, so everybody goes through this, yes. But what is the purpose? Now we see here. This too, the supreme diplomat can use. He's a diplomat. He says, okay, Ultimately, He is the one who makes us go through all these processes. He makes our fall a means for greater rise. Again, disclaimer, it doesn't mean fall so that you can rise higher. It doesn't mean that. It will happen inevitably. Nobody can avoid it. This is the process of the journey. Sri Aurobindo said, even the strongest and the most sincere cannot. It's impossible. That's why there is grace. So, what is the purpose of it? This too the supreme diplomat can use. For into ignorant nature's gusty field, there is in us beautiful luminous parts, but there is in us gusty fields, turbulent fields of nature. Ordinarily in life, we keep them under check of a facade of civilization. Very often people ask, "Are outside people behave so nicely? Why they become so rude here?" Because there is a facade. What is the facade? You are supposed to behave nicely. Why? Because you lose your job. As simple as that. Here, the moment you have the name on prosperity list, it doesn't matter. You are permanently now taken care of, and no promotion also. This promotion, getting a chair and all is hardly anything. Okay, so there is no promotion, there is nothing. So now your basics are provided. Now in freedom you pursue this yoga. Now the nature comes out as it is. It's no more you can't cover for long and wear a mask because you don't need the mask. Normally people wear the mask for roti kapda makan. You know ki this is it. Some people keep wearing the mask because they keep thinking they'll please, people to get more benefits and advantages. But after a while that too drops off. For into ignorant nature's gusty field, into the half-ordered chaos of mortal life, the formless power, the self of eternal light, follow in the shadow of the Spirit's descent. So they too come. When we enter into these fields, Mother also comes. We have this idea, oh, Mother has abandoned me. You see, so many times Sri Aurobindo reminds us, the Mother never abandons. Just imagine if Mother abandons creation. Is there any hope for anything? That's what Savitri is about. Even in that utter darkness, Satyavan doesn't know. But she enters there. This is the whole symbol. So she never abandons. So we have to keep referring, keep calling, keep on offering. That's what is our job. So she comes. The twin duality, forever one, chooses its home mid the tumults of the sense. We think that God is not watching. He is watching. Some people say, when they use a ring and all, or no, I don't want to because I don't know whether I deserve it or not. Who will ever deserve even to wear a ring with Mother's symbol? Who can ever deserve? So there are two approaches people take. One is that I can't wear because, after all, I am impure and I may be doing impure things. The other approach is she is the eternal witness of everything and the doer. So it is much better that whatever you go through in life, she is the witness. Keep calling her and offer to her everything. So this is the ultimate. He comes unseen into our darker parts. We don't know that he is watching. But he is watching. Not with anger, but with deep compassion, understanding, wisdom, not with condemnation, but to save us in the Mother, in prayers and meditation, there is a prayer, the Mother says, or in synthesis it's there, that when we learn to offer to the divine, then after a while we discover, when we look back, how a benevolent power has always been with us and saved us. Saved us from where? Sri Aurobindo says, even from ourselves. Just imagine. Saved us even from ourselves. And yet it takes us through all this. The Kurukshetra is still there. He comes unseen into our darker parts and curtained by the darkness does his work. A subtle and all-knowing guest and guide. He knows everything. Don't think that he doesn't know about darkness. He knows very well. This entire journey is his journey. One way to look at the whole journey of human life is, Mother, it's your journey. Because it is her journey. That's the truth. Till they too feel the need and will to change. This is the big challenge of evolution. that it's not something imposed forcefully. It's Sri Aurobindo, I mean, the divine power can do it, then it's not evolution, it's an automaton. You make a machine meant for something, as Sri Aurobindo says, a robo, exact and precise and artificial and false. That's not what he wants us to become. So it has to feel the need for change, and then the pouring, and then the change, because the change has to be at that level for its own purposes. All here must learn to obey higher law. Our body's cells must hold the immortal's flame, else would the spirit reach alone its source, leaving a half-saved world to its dubious fate. Otherwise, what happens? Like in old yogas, people get sick and tired. They say nature cannot change. So what is the approach they take? The approach of Shivoham, Shivoham, Satchidanandoham, Namata, Nabrata, Nabandhur, Name Panchavayu. I am none of these. I am not the elements. I am not the ego, Mano, Buddha, Ahankar. I am none of these. So what am I? I am Shivoham, Shivoham, Satchidanandoham. So what is this? You don't worry about it. It is Maya, Prakriti. So why? Who tied me to this if ultimately I had to be free? This too must change. That's where the whole catch is. And then he describes at the end, even his godlike strength to rise must fail. This is about Ashupati. Even his godlike strength to rise must fall. Always the power poured back like sudden rain. But each time you come out, there is a greater opening. Because there is one more new. You know, have you experienced? Jacuzzis must have experienced. So what is jacuzzi? Jacuzzi is very interesting. Okay, not about the comfort and all that. But the interesting part is, it looks like luxury. It is a kind of luxury. But there is something very nice about it, which, when first time I experienced, I said, what is the use of all this? We are used to a shower, even bucket water. So why there should be a shower there, another shower here, a third one here? What is the point of all this? Then you realize that it's because it comes with a piercing stream almost. It actually relaxes all the different parts of your body. So it's a totality, no doubt about it. It's a luxury, but it's also more complete. The bath is very different. So there is a divine jacuzzi. Jacuzzi, how do you... One is the shower, and the other is every point he touches and releases us from there. So there is a greater opening. It's not just an opening above, but an opening in different parts. So there is more inflow. Or slowly in his breast a presence grew, it clambered back to some remembered height, or soared above the peak from which it fell. You see, this is how the whole process takes place. Each time he rose, there was a larger poise, a dwelling on a higher spirit plane. The light remained in him a longer space. In this oscillation between earth and heaven, in this ineffable communion's climb, there grew in him as grows a waxing moon, the glory of the integer of his soul. Now you see, understand how there is the Chandrasekhara, and that story of Shiva is so fascinating about the moon. So moon has been cursed that he will die. Why? Because he doesn't follow the way Daksha Prajapati has ordained things. That's the story, no? I'm not going into the gory details of the story. Because that they can also be explained very beautifully. And some people explain it according to, that all the nakshatras, but the symbol, look at it like that. Moon doesn't follow. He has his own format. He's a being, he's a very loving creature. So he doesn't follow the preordained logic of Daksha. So one day Daksh curses him. You die. Die? So moon says, okay, but moon has to serve a purpose. So there is darkness which begins to grow. So he goes to the feet of Shiva. So Shiva says, okay, I'll keep you on my head. But the curse of Daksha cannot go completely waste. So what will happen? He says, you will wax and wane. You will grow into fullness, then come back to a near oblivion. Again you will grow into fullness, but you won't die. So moon is the symbol of the spiritual mind. It cannot completely solve the riddle of darkness, but it can provide you through the waxing and waning the journey till you reach the Purna Chandra, which is the complete emergence of the soul. After that, the sun, the supramental light. So that is the story of the moon. So like the waxing and waning of moon, he grew into the perfect integer. Means the soul now has command over all the territories. It has waged the war and won. Otherwise, it's like a king whom nobody listens. He is still the king. He has become a king. He has got separated from nature. But when he passes order, the mantris, one or two ministers listen. But after that, the ministers are also helpless. They say that we go, but nobody listens. There's chaos out there. So these are the two possibilities. But in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, because it's a perfect perfection and completeness, therefore one has to go through this process of rise and fall. And this happens not only in individuals, it happens in the entire civilization. In every Satyug, there is a Kalyug. That's how it is described, In every Kalyug, there is a Satyug, which will again come down. So we go through these spirals of ascent and descent so that the whole journey can be in the fullness. Namaste.